Good morning. I am Edgewood High School's principal, Sandra McMichael. I'm very excited to be here. I am a new principal and new to Edgewood High School, so this is a really exciting day for me. I'm really happy to get to be here and experience the Hall of Fame ceremony, meet everyone that's here, welcome you back, welcome our inductees, get to see our kids perform for the very first time, so those are all really exciting things for me. On behalf of the school and the Edgewood High Alumni Association, co-sponsors of the Hall of Fame program, I want to welcome back all of our current Hall of Famers seated in the audience or on the stage here with me. You'll get a chance to meet each one of them in just a couple of moments. And let me be the first to congratulate our 5 new Hall of Fame members. You'll hear their inspiring life stories shortly. We're delighted to be back in our school for these ceremonies and want to thank again the Mountain Christian Epicenter for hosting our induction ceremony last year since we weren't able to do it here. With our inductions today, we will have 83 individuals and 1 family of siblings in the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame. Our staff and students get to see the plaques of these outstanding individuals on our first floor hallway every day as they go to and from classes. And I want to pause here for just a second because this was really exciting for me to get to see here a little bit ago. I was kind of coming this direction to enter the auditorium, and a group of students was getting ready to leave the building to go on a field trip. And the teacher kind of pushed them up against the wall and was like, just wait here, let them pass. And the kids were watching, and some of you, I don't know who it was, but you guys were standing there looking at the plaques on the wall, and the kids were watching you. I don't think people realized it, but the kids were lined up and they were standing there watching you. And one of them said to me, "Are those people on that wall?" And I said, "Well, some of them, yes." And they were like, "That is so cool." Like they were like really excited to get to see people standing there staring at the wall and looking at the pictures and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to share that because I thought that that was really awesome that the kids themselves were excited about that. So that was neat. The Edgewood Hall of Fame is unique in that it includes not only alumni but former staff and community supporters, all of whom provide exemplary role models for this generation of the Edgewood community. Today, for the first time, we'll be inducting a current staff member, so we're really excited about that, who also happens to be an alumnus of this great school. This is my first time being part of this great program, and I have got to say the way it brings together the alumni, government, and school leaders and the community is one of the most impressive programs that I've seen here so far, and that's a genuine statement. It's really it's been great for me to see what a powerful influence the Edgewood High School alumni is in this building and in this community. It's fantastic to get to witness that, so I'm really excited about all of that. Another unique feature of our Hall of Fame, today, 4 current Hall of Famers and 1 of our assistant principals will tell you just a little bit about each inductee as you get to see the honorees' lives played out in pictures on the screen kind of in front of and above me. You had a chance to hear our talented string quartet musicians on your way into the auditorium this morning. And now members of our equally talented chamber choir, under the direction of Mr. Dormy, will help us honor our country with our national anthem. You are invited to stand, if you wish, as our students sing.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
So while they're exiting and going back to their seats, some of you may have noticed some interesting attire underneath the, sticking out from the bottoms of their robes. It is Throwback Thursday. It's, Homecoming Spirit Week, so kind of appropriate given our ceremony today. But we've had some really great participation with Spirit Week this week, so we're real proud of them for that as well. The students will be back with us later in the program to perform another inspirational selection. As you know, it's homecoming weekend here at Edgewood High School. We're delighted to have many alumni and community members with us today. Our celebration of the new Hall of Fame class will continue today with tours of the building for those of you who wish, conducted by members of our student body and staff. And for those of you who have signed up, there will be a luncheon up in the International Baccalaureate area, prepared and served by students and staff from our Family Consumer Science program. Then tomorrow afternoon, our new Hall of Fame members will be featured participants in the homecoming parade, riding in vintage Corvettes. I have to ride in the Gator, so, that'll be good. I think Mr. Clemmer's gonna get to drive that. Yes, okay. And courtesy of Mr. Brian Donnelly and others in the Alumni Association, there will be a tailgate experience in the parking lot adjacent to the athletic field, followed by the introduction of not only the new Hall of Fame members, but more than 20 returning Hall of Fame honorees to fans just before the game against North Hartford. On Saturday, the third Hall of Fame Bud Coakley Wee Bradley Scholarship Golf Tournament and will be staged at the Geneva Farm Golf Course, proceeds of which will help support the Hall of Fame program and the 2 alumni scholarships provided in the names of Mr. Coakley and Mr. Bradley. This Hall of Fame program began 12 years ago and continues to flourish due to the enthusiastic support of school administrations that have come before and current staff members, as well as the unwavering leadership provided by the outstanding Edgewood High School Alumni Association. Now it is my great honor to introduce a proud member of our Hall of Fame, inducted in 2012, and an even more proud member of the Edgewood High School class of 1972, Mrs. Nadine Haas Wellington. Will you please welcome our MC for today's ceremony, Mrs. Wellington.
Thank you so much. Choraleers, that's what we were called when we sang and wore those red and white robes. Choraleers. I bet you they're much lighter. Ours were very heavy. They were very, very heavy. Oh, then my name. When you're finished, they look for my name in the back of one of those, okay? So it's Throwback Day. So how many of you have dressed like the 70s? All right, because it was the best. It was the best. So thank you very much. I want to see the outfits after this, okay? I want to see the outfits. So in my little box here, I treasure that I have at home in a special place. I take it out once a year, and once a year, I put on my only and favorite medallion that I own. Now notice, it's red and white. Because the school colors, years ago, were red and white. And then they introduced red, white, and black, which I love. And so that's why the difference in some of the ribbons that you see. In 2004, when the 50th anniversary of the opening of Edgewood High School was approaching, a group of alumni, led by Helen Morrison, Edgewood High School class of 1961, thought it was important that the community have the opportunity to celebrate the school's silver anniversary in style. And so they staged a program at the old building, complete with an opening of the original 1954 cornerstone, hosted by the school's principal, Joe Schmitz, and headlined by Mr. Joe Brown, who was an English teacher and assistant principal at Edgewood High, before opening Edgewood Middle School in 1965. The ceremony was followed by a gala for the first 5 graduating classes from Edgewood High School, 1968 through 1962. Out of that event was born the EHS Alumni Association, which has, over the years, supported the school we love in so many ways, including the presentation of annual scholarships, fundraising festivals, and dozens of other projects, all aimed at honoring the legacy of our school, its students, and staff. Then in 2010, the year this beautiful new building was opened, members of the Alumni Association approached the school administration about beginning a Hall of Fame to honor community supporters, former staff and alumni, whose lives have been models of achievement and giving back. With the 5 outstanding individuals we will induct this year, what began with a charter class of 15 has grown to 84 individuals and 1 family of 7 siblings. I think that deserves a round of applause. And speaking of living legacies, we are pleased to have with us 2 members of the original 1958 graduating class of Edgewood High School, Mrs. Janice Morrison Cullum and Mrs. Joanne Mokarski Scarborough. Please welcome them back. Ladies, would you please stand together? We're also honored to have with us today 34 current members of the Hall of Fame, and you're going to have the opportunity to meet them right now. Each is wearing the handsome medallion like the one that I'm wearing, which I very much cherish. As I call your name, please rise and turn and face the camera in the back of the auditorium. I'll ask that we hold our applause until all of the current Hall of Fame members have been announced. Now, there's a little PS to all this. If you could stand without letting the chair flap, that would be great, because that's what the chairs have a tendency to do. That was a little note given to me last minute. First, from the charter class of 2011, you heard me mention our founding alumni, President Mrs. Helen Morrison, also Ms. Carol Barker, Mr. Howard McComas III, Mr. Charles Marsden, and you can remain standing, folks, Dr. Carl Roberts, Mr. Bob Williams, and Mr. Paul Metzger up here on the stage. Representing the Hall of Fame class of 2012 is yours truly, and Mr. Scott Elliott. From the 2013 Hall of Fame class, Mr. John Bowman and Mrs. Bonnie Markowski Hayden. From 2015, Mr. Bruce Riley. Representing the class of 2016, U.S. Marshal Johnny Hughes and Ms. Carolyn Custenbauer, along with Mrs. Debbie Bazer, who's on stage. From the class of 2017, Mr. Bob McCone, Mr. Keith Rawlings, and representing the Dang siblings, Mrs. Bang Tam Miller, Mrs. Don Ton Dang, Mrs. Ton Lee Campbell, and on stage, our Edgewood High School alumni president, Mrs. Karen Carey. We also have Albert Cubby Bear. Here from the class of 2018 is Mrs. Linda Dousa, Mr. Rob Birch Sr., Mrs. Marva Choates, and Dr. Kenny Messman on stage. Representing the class of 2019, Mr. Chick Ham, Ms. Gina Abate, Mr. Pat Pollard, and Mr. Joe Schmitz. And finally, from the combined classes of 2020 and 2021, on stage is Mr. John Lowe, and in the audience, Mr. Tom McShane, Mr. Tom Konjerski, Mr. Dennis Compton, Mr. Rick Wolf, Ms. Patty DeBeck, and Mr. McShane is also representing his late father, William Doc McShane, who was inducted in the class of 2014. Oh my, what an amazing group. Please let's join together in showing our respect and admiration. Thank you so much. I'd like to highlight a number of special people who helped make today's program possible. First, you've met Ms. Karen Carey, who is president of the HS Alumni Association. Now also greet Mr. Stephen White, who is the vice president of the Alumni Association. Would you both please stand? I'd also like to acknowledge Karen Carey, who created the slideshow you'll be viewing, as each new Hall of Fame member is introduced. Thank you both. We want to extend a special thanks. You can clap anytime you want. I'm fine with that. We want to extend a special thanks to 2 members of the Edgewood High School staff who provided invaluable assistance with the Hall of Fame program. They're on stage with us, Assistant Principal Josh Clemmer and Athletic Director Sarah Friedman. I love your sweater. I love your sweater. Next year I'm going to wear mine. It used to be red and white. It's like red and yellow now, but I really like the jacket. Very nice touch. Thank you so much for wearing it. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge and thank Mr. Don Morrison for his tireless dedication and commitment to the Hall of Fame of Edgewood High School. The chairperson of the Hall of Fame Planning Committee, he is the mastermind behind today's events. Please join me in thanking Don, and would the committee please rise so we can acknowledge your efforts today. We are delighted that a number of our elected officials could join us this morning. Will you please stand as I call your name, and the audience, please hold your applause until all of our distinguished guests have been introduced. With us are County Council members Mr. Andre Johnson and Mr. Chad Schroeds. Also here, Tooch. Also here, I love you, Tooch. Also here is State Delegate Mr. Steve Johnson. Is he here? He's not here. But if he was here, he would be standing. And from the Maryland State Senate, Mr. Bob Casserly. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here. Our first inductee has a dual reason to be celebrating today. Not only is he being inducted into his alma mater's Hall of Fame, but he is joining his classmates in celebrating the anniversary of their 60th high school graduation year. That's a long time. That's okay, we just celebrated 51 last year, it's 50. Receiving his diploma with high honors here in 1962. Dr. David Richmond and the gentleman who will be introducing him, Dr. Kenny Messman, are not only fellow MDs, but grew up in the same neighborhood and have been lifelong friends. One of Dr. Richmond's favorite memories of EHS is hanging out with Kenny. What you may not know about Dr. Richmond is that he cycled from Oregon to Virginia at age 60 in 2 months, logging 4,376 miles. Dr. Messman spent more than 2 decades of his life as a medical missionary in Africa, flying his own airplane into remote areas, bringing healing care to villagers, often despite being caught between warring factions. I'm going to ask Dr. Kenny Messman to come in just a moment to introduce to you Dr. Richmond. Before I do, I just need to let you know that we have 5 inductees, and each inductee is going to receive a set of proclamations from our county government and state and the Alumni Association. So once Mr. Messman has introduced Dr. Richmond, we will have the presentation of those proclamations and citations, one at a time. And that's the only time we will do that. In the interest of time, then, we will have each ensuing inductee be introduced and give their acceptance speech. So I would like to introduce now Dr. Kenny Messman.
brought along my papers. As being in Africa for 27 years, I'm not very facile with computers, so I had to piece it together. And as I am 79, I didn't want to forget anything. So I'm very honored that I get to put this gentleman sitting to my left in the first chair, David Richmond, I get to put him on the wall to which you referred. And I consider myself to be his best friend. That's my point of view. I hope he has the same. We grew up in the same community over there on Old Philadelphia Road, and we have been lifelong friends ever since then. And we have often been accused of being clones. In high school, every night I was either in his house or he was in my house. Our families were close, and he and I had like-minded dedication to academics. And that common appreciation of academics led us to be often criticized as geeks, and sometimes were derided as hearing people say, "Those are the two guys who spoil the curve." But we didn't let that bother us. That was, in this modern day, that would be considered bullying, but we didn't understand that, so we just continued. I don't know if we were the first doctors to come out of Edgewood High School. I know that my class was the first to graduate having put in 7 years in Edgewood. My oldest brother, Jack, was in the first graduating class with Markowski and, see, there's my dementia coming in. And I often remember him referring to you when talking about the beautiful girls in the class. In school, David was a scholar. He was lettering in track and field. He submitted a science fair display and won a prize in the county competition. And eventually he stood on the stage with his graduating class as the valedictorian. He and I separated when I went away to Bible college in East Tennessee, and he went on to the University of Maryland, where he shortened his, what would be normally an 8-year course, a 4-year college, 4-year medical school. He shortened that and managed to graduate the same year that I did from medical school. Now, I don't think I got my inspiration to be a doctor from him, but I think it was like-mindedness that did cause me to become a physician. He demonstrated his desire to help others by going into the military and eventually was posted to Amsterdam. And over 27 years, he served in the military. And during that time, I was serving 24 years in southern Africa, and what used to be Rhodesia became Zimbabwe. And during the most intense part of the freedom struggle in Zimbabwe, or Rhodesia, David came, risking his life, came with his wife and his 10-year-old son to visit me for 3 weeks. And in the book which I wrote, one of the chapters deals with his visit because it was a very dangerous time, and his life, although he didn't know it at the time, was at great risk. So David in the military was a flight surgeon, flying in the most sophisticated jets that the U.S. Air Force has, and he was also director of the medical services and family practice. Now, there are some other things written on the paper that I was given, but I did not want to be guilty of letting you know why this man is truly very deserving of being in the Hall of Fame of Edgewood High School. He is a man of great character, he is unique, and he is worthy of our praise. Number one, a man who is slow to anger. Now that's a trait that helps you survive 57 years of marriage. Although I must admit, living with someone as gracious as Gail, his wife, who's sitting down front here, that's easy to spend time without being angry. I have never in my 66 years of acquaintance with David heard him raise his voice in anger. Except one time when he ran over some pieces of glass on the road from Fort Belvoir to Kaiser, getting a flat tire and saying some obscenities about those people who throw their beer bottles on the road. Secondly, he's unique in that he is unpretentious. A man with so many accolades and accomplishments has every right to brag. But again, I have never heard David brag about any of these accomplishments. Imagine if you in high school were the valedictorian. I didn't know that David was the valedictorian. My best friend. He never told me. In medical school, he was magna cum laude. Not a high school magna cum laude, medical school cum laude. They say half of the medical students have photographic memories. David was a magna cum laude. In residency, he was voted the outstanding family practice resident. He was later called the Family Physician of the Year, and at one time, Outstanding Family Practice Attending Physician. Those are things that happened here in the United States. In the military, Colonel. Many people are at a loss. Do I call him Colonel or do I call him Doctor? I'm one of the very few people in this room who call him David, because all of you know those titles and you use them, which he deserves. He was a flight surgeon. He was a director of base medical services in 3 different locations. He was director of family practice program in 2 different places, training military medical students to be doctors. He was an associate professor. And despite all of these, which I have said, half of them I didn't know about, he never brags about them. The third and final unique quality is that he is unique among physicians. His patients know it, and his colleagues know it, that he is a unique doctor. I have treated some of his patients. That's how I know these things. When he was on leave at Kaiser, I would sometimes see his patients. They would say, Dr. Richmond is an intense, undistracted listener. He understands me. He thoroughly examines me. Even I was shocked in my days at Kaiser. Patients would say, "You're the first doctor who touched me." Many doctors just do an interview, write prescriptions, and send you back out the door. This doctor and we examine patients, regardless of what they have come through the door for. The patients also say he gives me options and suggestions, but he allows me to choose the options. Then he works with me with great dedication to see that my choice is carried out and that my problem is solved. In short, he creates long-lasting relationships with patients. He creates lasting memories with patients. How many of us don't even remember the names of our physicians? How many of us are found describing joyful encounters with our family physician? Very few. I have been around many doctors, both in this country and in Africa. None has the uniqueness of this man, Dr. David Richmond. In his retirement, which he greatly deserves, he continues to devote himself to others. He's worked as a Red Cross volunteer. He has provided medical services at many bicycle fundraisers. And even now, already you heard about his trans-country bicycling, 4,800 miles. He volunteers in a bicycle shop which makes bicycles for people who can't afford them. So today I'm introducing David with his lovely and joyful wife of 56 years as an outstanding candidate, inductee in the Hall of Fame for Edgewood. He's treated thousands of patients with compassion. He's earned the respect of hundreds of colleagues, and he has meticulously trained hundreds of military medical students to become doctors, and you can see how that goes on to multiply exponentially. I am proud to introduce to you Dr. David Richmond, Colonel David Richmond.
Dr. Richmond, it's an honor to meet you. We have several gifts for you today. If you'll step right over here. Right here next to me, our principal is going to give you your medallion. Oops, other way.
So sorry.
It's okay.
Other way.
That's all right. There you go. All right.
Thank you very much.
And come right here. Just stand here with me. Okay. Let me get my little notes up here. Okay. I'm going to work as a partner here. Okay. A recognition from the Alumni Association from Mrs. Karen Carey.
Yes, we have two plaques for you. One that is duplicated, that's on the wall out there, and then we also have your Edgewood letter, and the certificate reads: Edgewood High School Alumni Association, presented to Dr. David R. Richmond, alumni class of 1962, in recognition of having been named to be a member of the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame on Thursday, September 29th, 2022, in acknowledgement of his outstanding scholarship in high school and college, his 27 years of service to his country as a U.S. Air Force flight surgeon, his work as a family physician, and his continuing volunteer service in countless ways to his community. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to hand this just so that you can. So this is the plaque, if you haven't seen it, with Dr. Richmond's picture on it. There is one now mounted in the hall, and this is for Dr. Richmond to put over your bed. And then this is your letter. I bet you had some of these. Yeah? Okay. All right. Next, from the County Council, is Mr. Andre Johnson. Come on over here. There you go. And he's just going to.
Thank you, Doctor, for good morning. And this is a proclamation from the County Council. All the County Council members have signed it. this is for your commitment and dedication to service, and we're just so appreciative of you and your commitment to the community and to the nation as a whole. And thank you for being an Edgewood alum.
You're doing great. All right. Okay. It's a lot, isn't it? Okay. That's what you get for being first. And from the Maryland General Assembly, we have Senator Bob Casserly, who has some proclamations for you.
And to all the awardees, because we're getting up just once, on behalf of the state of Maryland, and Governor Hogan, and the entire Maryland General Assembly, thank you for your service on behalf of our nation, our state, and our county. To all of you, congratulations and best wishes to you in the future. But thank you very much. Thank you. Let me get a quick photo over here. Here, I'll open up one of these.
And representing the Hartford County government and the county executive is Mr. Schroeds.
Good morning. It's truly an honor to be here, and you know, I don't even know what to say. You've done so much. I know you started off here, and this great school gave you an awesome foundation to make you what you have become throughout your career, both in medical and serving your country for 27 years. And then you continue to give back with the bicycle shop. I just love that, and I know that that's your passion, and how incredible to log in that kind of those kind of miles at the age of 60. So congratulations to you from myself and the entire county council, but I do have a citation from our county executive, Barry Glassman, that I would like to present to you. And I also want to congratulate each of you for being inducted today, as well as everyone else in the crowd that has given so much back since graduating from this school to your community.
Dr. Richmond.
My dear departed mother would have loved that. You've heard enough about me, I think, so I'm going to talk about you. I'm going to talk about health and happiness, and they really are connected. It's difficult to be happy if you're in poor health, and if you're happy, you're much more likely to be healthy. You were born to move. Sitting too much turns out to be bad for you, even if you're getting the recommended amount of aerobic exercise, 150 minutes a week. So walking, running, swimming, cycling, playing a sport, these really are essential for your health. Stress, something we tend to shudder at, but actually stress is the stuff of life. Stress and recover, that's athletic training, but it's also life training. So you need to cultivate ways of recovering from stress. That can be meditation, yoga, or if you're a religious person, prayer. Sleep turns out to be essential to your health, 7 to 8 hours a night. And the role of naps, which I learned to cultivate when I was an intern, doing 36-hour shifts and 12 off for about 8 months. That's a survival experience, let me tell you. You are what you eat. It turns out that you're not eating just for yourself alone. but for millions of organisms that live inside of you. Do you know what a microbiome is, buddy? That's the term for all the bacteria that live inside your gut. They turn out to be very important to your health. So feeding them, along with feeding yourself, that means avoiding a lot of added sugar. That means avoiding the whites, white rice, white bread, white potatoes. However, in any endeavor like that, we like to invoke what we call the 80-20 rule. That means if you're good 80% of the time, you can probably be bad 20% of the time. You don't need to deprive yourself in order to stay healthy. It's what happens in the long run that counts. And finally, I would mention drugs. The one you probably should stick with is in coffee and tea. Caffeine seems to be beneficial for most people. Most of the other drugs, not so much. So what about happiness? Well, sometimes what comes to mind is money and sex. It turns out that money doesn't really help you once you have enough to feed yourself, to clothe yourself, take care of your family and your lodging. More money doesn't make you happier. The research is very clear on this. And as for sex, that actually, with someone in a loving relationship, also contributes both to your happiness as well as to your health. Having a life partner is also associated with both happiness and health. And having a good social life, having friends that you can count on throughout your life. Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver, and the other is gold. And service. When you give to other people, this basically increases your sense of self-worth and happiness more than receiving. And finally, gratitude. Gratitude is something that contributes a lot to your happiness. So I want to express my gratitude to this high school, which gave me a fine start. We had terrific role models. We're looking at you, Mr. Marsden. And we were introduced to, even to introduce to politics, we had quite a contest for student class president, which I lost. Even that is a valuable experience. We probably learn more from our mistakes and slip-ups than we do from our successes sometimes. And even in this day and age, we need gifted politicians. We need gifted leaders. And we have especially troublesome times, so that the value of learning about leadership cannot be underestimated. So thanks to the start I got at Edgewood High School, a foundation for all the accomplishments that you may have heard about. That's what I would like to leave you with. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Richmond, for your words of wisdom. Our second inductee today is unique in many ways. First, George Fancher is continuing his 38th year as a much-admired building maintenance leader at Edgewood High, the only member in our Hall of Fame still working at the school. And second, Mr. Fancher is also an alum of EHS. In fact, he and I were in the same 1972 graduating class. A man who draws little attention to himself, Mr. Fancher is a standout among the EHS family. Here to tell you about Mr. Fancher is a man who oversees his work every day. Please welcome to the podium Assistant Principal Josh Clemmer.
Thank you. Over the last few years, it has been my privilege to work with George Fancher at Edgewood High School.
I've joined his legion of fans in this time. He is one of the most dedicated, hardworking, and efficient custodians I have ever been around. But he's more than that. He loves Edgewood High School, its students, its staff, and the community with a passion that almost defies belief. George Fancher is unique among our 85 Hall of Fame members in that he is not only a graduate of the school who returned to work at his alma mater, but he continues at the age of 68 to handle his duties enthusiastically at the school, rising now to be the assistant chief of our building maintenance crew. If anyone on our staff wants anything done that's in the power of Mr. Fancher, or Mr. George as he prefers to be called, to make happen, he jumps in to handle it. Students call him their friend, and visitors to school are made to feel welcome. George Fancher is a self-made man. An outstanding student in the industrial arts program in his time at Edgewood High School, he took community college classes after graduating, earning his certificate as an auditor, working in that field for 38 years. To supplement his family's income, he took a part-time job as a custodian at Edgewood High in 1989. He worked what amounted to 2 full-time jobs for the next almost 4 decades, working here at various times on day as well as night shifts. Your program says people who know him believe George Fancher bleeds Edgewood red and white. As someone who is with him on a daily basis, I and all who come in contact with him can vouch for that. We can't imagine our Hall of Fame, we can't imagine Edgewood High School without George Fancher. And now his image will be on our Hall of Fame wall as long as the building stands. Mr. Fancher and his wife, Brenda Alexander Fancher, is also a grad of EHS, have been married for 42 years. They are the parents of 3 children and of 2 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, the very valuable, please greet Edgewood High School Ambassador, one of its newest Hall of Fame members. We all know and love Mr. George R. Fancher.
Thank you, Mr. Clemmer, for that wonderful introduction. It was totally unexpected. I am honored to have been selected. I remember being at Edgewood High School here in the 1970s. A lot has changed since then, and for more than 30 years, I've enjoyed working at Edgewood High School. I'd like to thank all the people I've worked for and been kind to, and every member of the staff throughout the years. I can tell how much I appreciate their kindness. I'd also like to thank the students that kept me young with their energy and appreciate the respect they've shown me. To my wife, Brenda, and my kids, Christopher, Tony, and Ashley, and my entire family, I love you. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Finally, to Paul Metzger and all the others who nominated me to be in the Hall of Fame, I can only am humbled by your confidence in me. To the Hall of Fame members who voted for me, I will forever be grateful. This has been the best school to work for the best people with their dedication and continued service to this great community. Thank you.
Our third inductee today is a man who spent 10 years as an elected member of the Harford County Board of Education. This on the heels of 2 previous careers, one as a police officer and the other as a classroom teacher. Bob Frisch is born as a born leader with a servant's heart. He is active in the community as a sports instructor and coach and a respected soccer official at the recreation, interscholastic, and collegiate levels. I remember Bob well. He was a year younger. He was a fantastic soccer player. My brother played with him. He says hi, and he's very proud of you. Who better to tell you about Bob than a man who taught him in high school and who has remained a mentor ever since? Paul Metzger was a teacher and work experience coordinator at Edgewood High School for 30 years. He was a highly successful coach of both the Rams soccer team and the state champion Edgewood basketball team. Mr. Metzger is a charter member of the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame, and he's here to tell you why Bob Frisch deserves to have a place in our Hall of Fame. Mr. Metzger.
Thank you, Nadine. Before I get started on introducing our next inductee, I'd like to say that I'd like to thank Don Morrison for the last 12 years, the passion he has put in this program and put this program to where it is today. And Don, you deserve a lot of thanks, and I appreciate it. It's hard for me to say this, but George, congratulations, George. Every day you go up and down the hall now. I don't know how many more years you're going to work, but up there, every day when you go by your picture on the wall, think of how great an honor it is, and I'm so happy to see you in the Hall of Fame. I'm honored to introduce our next inductee. I first met Bob Frisch in September of 1969 when he was a freshman in my woodshop class. From the beginning, he showed this drive for perfection, and he still shows that same quality today. Even then, I knew he was an extraordinary person, giving others and going above and beyond the call of duty in everything he did. He played on my soccer team for 4 years in Edgewood high school, and he became almost like a son to me. He was on our 1971 county soccer championship team, the first soccer team other than North Hartford to win a Hartford County title. After high school, Bob chose to go into law enforcement in one of the most challenging areas possible, Baltimore City, where he immediately became a leader. He was a court-recognized expert in highway safety. After 20 years as a policeman, he went back to college, earning his BS degree and teaching certificate before starting his second career as a special education and social studies teacher in Baltimore County. During his 10 years in the classroom, he was chosen to be supervising teacher and mentor. Continuing his service to others, he helped many military veterans transition into teaching. Bob was on the Edgewood and Falston Citizen Advisory Board and lay leader in his church, working with groups to provide shelter for those in need during the winter. At the same time, he continued his lifelong interest in sports, first as a tennis instructor, then as a respected soccer official, calling games in the Recreation League all the way to college level, where he continues to do so. I think he had 6 games he officiated last week. As if it wasn't enough, Bob Frisch took on the thankless but critical job of being a member of the Hartford County Board of Education, winning election among the first group to be chosen by citizens to serve as a policy leader in the school system. He served 2 terms, which is all you're allowed to serve. He served 2 terms representing Edgewood surrounding communities from 2010 to 2019. He continued giving himself as a sought-after substitute teacher. Through all the years, Bob has remained a loyal and close friend who is always there to help without ever being asked. People like Bob Frisch are rare indeed. Bob and his wife Carla have 2 sons and 2 grandsons. I think you will agree with me that Robert L. Frisch is just the kind of person we want in the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame. Please help me welcome him to this group of positive role models. Thank you.
Wow. I wasn't expected to be given instructions when I got here, but the first one was to speak up. So I haven't decided whether to use my police officer voice or my teacher voice. So I hope it's loud enough. When I was first approached about a nomination to Hall, I was just flattered. I thought it was a very gracious offer. Quite honestly, I never expected to be here. So I want to thank all those who sponsored my nomination, Gina Bate, Carol Barker, Bonnie Hayden, Paul Metzger, and Don Morrison. Thank you for having the faith. I tried to do a little research on how many people have graduated from high school here at Edgewood. And while there are no exact figures, the total is somewhere around 15,000, 16,000. There have been probably 2,000 staff members come through the system here. And any number of very dedicated and deserving members of our community who've supported this school system beyond what most of us have any knowledge of. So to even be considered to be in the Hall of Fame is just beyond my belief. I know that there are so many people out there who've done so many great things for our world, for our nation, for our state, our community, and it's just because of social media and the advent of modern communication that someone knows my story or was willing to tell it. But there are so many out there whose stories don't know, but are equally deserving of having a spot in the Hall of Fame. So I thank my sponsors, and I thank all the members of the Hall who saw fit to select me for this great honor. Thank you. My experience at Edgewood helped form me as a man going forward. Of course, none of this would be possible if it wasn't for the support of people in my life. I've had many supporters in my career in law enforcement and education, in the community, but of course, the most support and the most appreciation goes to my family. Carla has spent 46 years with me, supporting me along the way. She's been my foundation. She's been my safe harbor. She has been there to support me in all of my ambitions, and while I chased my goals, even at the sacrifice of her own. I'd be nothing without you. A lot of this is about the recognition of awards and achievements, etc. But the reality is the greatest achievement of my life, having been part of it anyway, was the raising of two fine sons, Tim and David, who've become good men responsible men who become caring and loving husbands, and in Tim's case, a great father. I'm also supported by my church family, who have been with me ever since I married Carla, and she brought me to the church, and I'm thankful for that. You know, one of the great advantages of being on the Board of Education was an opportunity to have hand out diplomas, and I did that actually behind this podium a few times. It's a great deal, great thing to shake the hands of aspiring young people moving forward with their lives. And sorry. One of the other things, the benefits of being on the board, was to recognize outstanding people who have contributed to the Harford County School Board, school system. And one of those was Paul Metzger. I had the very, very distinct pleasure, and I think there's a picture up there somewhere, of when I had the chance to introduce Paul as a member of the Harford County Public Schools Hall of Fame. And so I thank you, Paul, and I thanks for returning his favor. So, when I got to Edgewood, you know, I guess I was popular enough. I had a little bit of athletic ability, I guess. And so I thought, well, I would try out for the JV football team. And I wish Mr. Forrest Weiss was here, because I would really thank him for cutting me. Because with that decision, changed the course of my life in many ways. It led a colleague or a fellow student to say, hey, we need some help on the soccer team, why don't you come out? So instead of sitting home, I said, well, okay, I'll do that. And it has led me to a life involved in soccer that I continue to this day. And it's a great experience. It's a wonderful sport, and I'm glad that Forrest cut me. So, there are a couple of credos in my life I've developed. One is persistence pays off, and did I make a difference? So, I've had many setbacks in my life, many failures, many mistakes, but I've also had opportunities to come back and try again. And two of the most valuable lessons that I learned here at Edgewood happened on the soccer field in the same season that we happened to win the county championship. You know, as was mentioned before, North Hartford was the only one that had ever won a county championship in soccer. And the year before we won, Edgewood was really kind of expected to win, but we missed out. But that year, we were a senior-laden team, and we were playing North Hartford, and I got beat to the ball, won a corner kick. And the opposing player scored a goal that tied the game with 5 minutes to go. And it put a really serious damper on our ability to win the county that year. I was quite upset about it. Matter of fact, I was so upset that I went up to the bleachers and I cried. So, but life offers second chances. So as it worked out, we wound up tied with North Hartford at the end of the season, and we had a playoff game. And while I didn't start, our best fullback was injured, so I got into the game. And while we were winning 1-0, North Hartford had beaten our keeper. The ball was rolling towards the goal. And if they had scored the goal at that point, it would change the momentum of the game terribly. Probably not in our favor. But I managed to clear the ball off the line before it crossed. So I learned about second chances. I learned about redemption. And you can come back from mistakes and failures. I went to college the first time, wasn't very successful. Actually, is why I wound up in the police department. But 30 years later, I managed to get my college degree. was the inspiration of my grandmother, who went to college for the first time in her 60s when she graduated. And I proudly wore her graduation cap at my own. So, inspiration, never give up, persistence pays off. Have an opportunity to recover from mistakes, redemption for those that are the most important. Again, thank you to the staff. Thank you for supporting this great program. We're very appreciative. Congratulations to my other inductees today. And thank you for the hall for the validation. Thank you.
Before we move to our final two induction ceremonies today, here to entertain and inspire is Mr. Zachary Doimy and his EHS Chamber Singers, performing their rendition of City Called Heaven.
This wide world
That was beautiful. Well done. Thank you so much. Well, it's time for another former teacher-student combo, as Mr. John Lowe, who was in the role of inductee just a year ago, introduces you to Mr. Cardell Williams. A life-changing event for Mr. Williams was his acceptance into and graduation from the West Point in 1983. Among his fondest memories of Edgewood High School is attending basketball games and watching Dudley Bradley play. He also remembers the milestone of making it to the States in cross country. Interesting fact, he speaks, writes, and reads German fluently after having lived there for 13 years. Our next presenter, Mr. Lowe, taught and coached for 38 years at Edgewood High School. He was an innovative science instructor and uniting figure during turbulent times. In all, he contributed 53 years as a teacher and molder of young lives. He's going to share with us how Mr. Cardell Williams took what he learned at Edgewood High and built a career of service in the military and in the classroom. Mr. Lowe.
Thank you, Nadine. I'm losing my voice. First of all, I would like to give a shout out to Jim Claypool for suggesting this nomination. It was an honor for me to be inducted last year in the Hall of Fame, and it's an equal honor to introduce one of the inductees for this year, Cardell Williams. When I was coaching Cardell in cross country and track almost 50 years ago, the one thing that stuck with me that he could run forever and fast without breaking a sweat, which I must admit at times was quite concerning. Literally didn't sweat. It was that kind of perseverance as well as talent that allowed this young man to accomplish all that he has both on the track and in the classroom. He won county championships in cross country and track and numerous medals at the regional and state levels, setting school records along the way. Combine that athletic ability with his National Honor Society membership and his outstanding character, and it is understandable that he would have earned an appointment to West Point, where he continued his record-breaking performances as a middle distance runner, setting academy records in both indoor and outdoor track. He was a two-time All-American at the Academy and won the prestigious Army Athletic Association Award in 1983. He spent a year training for the Olympics as an 800-meter runner while serving as a graduate assistant for track and field at West Point. Last year, the Military Academy showed the degree of respect with which he is held there by inducting him into the West Point Sports Hall of Fame. Mr. Williams got his bachelor's degree in engineering at West Point and was commissioned an officer, eventually rising to captain in his Army career. After living abroad for 13 years, where he met and married his wife Johanna and had 2 children, Jesse and Jasmine, Cardell returned to the U.S. to earn his master's degree in teaching and begin a second career as an award-winning middle and high school math teacher. Now in his 21st year in a classroom, he currently coaches the math team and coordinates the engineering science program at Paint Branch High School in Montgomery County. I think you will agree with me that Cardell Williams has accomplished great things in his life as an outstanding athlete and educator. Please join me in congratulating and welcoming him as a member of the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame.
So at this time, I'd like to thank the principal and all of the elected representatives here on stage, and also all of my fellow inductees. And I would like to thank the committee and all the others responsible for nominating and selecting me to be among a select few of thousands that have walked through the gates of Edgewood High School. Now, I still remember the day that I received a phone call notifying me that I was going to be nominated to be in the Hall of Fame. Now, to be frank about it, I thought it was a prank. In fact, my longtime friend Mike Freeze, I thought it was him, really, acting as someone from Edgewood High School that wanted to nominate me into the Hall of Fame, because I really didn't even know one existed. But I'm thankful. To that end, I'd like to thank Mr. Don Morrison, who I've come to respect, and he's responsible, really, for me being here, because I'm not one that loves the limelight. I just don't, I kind of shy away from recognition. It's probably something that we've developed here, probably started right here in Edgewood, and you've seen a lot of my fellow inductees. They have that same quality. It's humility. We're not up here. It's not about our individual accomplishments. It's about the ones who brought us here. So I'm very happy that I'm here. And the reason I'm here, I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to my wife, Johanna. She's there, and she's been my rock, my queen, the one who's always stood by my side for over 33 years. And we met in Augsburg, Germany, and that was a changing moment in my entire life. And so I'm grateful to her, my wife, Johanna. Now, along with Johanna, I have two beautiful children. They're adults now. I don't call them children. But I have my oldest son, Jesse, who is 26 years old. He's married to his wife, Honey, who could not attend here today. But I do have my daughter, Jasmine Coleman, along with her husband, Billy. They're here in attendance, and they're really, when you're a parent, it's the most difficult, the most challenging assignment that I've undertaken, and it's the most rewarding one. And so I'm very grateful. It's a lifetime achievement when you see your offspring grow up to be caring individuals, able to maneuver themselves through society with life's ups and downs. That's what makes you happy, and I can really be thankful for that. So I appreciate both Jesse and Jasmine. Now, the one I'd like to dedicate this acceptance speech to is my dad and mom. Yeah, it was my dad. He would have loved to be here. My dad loved Edgewood. He was a master sergeant, retired. And if my dad could have been here, he would be the one that would be the loudest. He loved Edgewood. He sacrificed many things for us to be here. He was a two-time Vietnam vet, Korean. He went to Korea. And my dad, born in Mississippi, where, as you know, Mississippi, when it comes to statistics, is bottom when it comes to education and opportunities. And he knew he needed to get out of Mississippi in order to give his offspring a chance. And that he did. And so we're grateful for that. And my dad turned down promotions. The reason? He wanted to stay right here in Edgewood because he knew this was a great place to raise kids and for the education that he had. So That was my dad, retired Master Sergeant, and my mom. So between those two, I get my probably leadership qualities and excellence from my dad, and then my compassion from my mom, who was a nurse. So that I am grateful, and this is why I'm really dedicating this acceptance to them, because I know they would have loved to be here. And we can really say that it's not bad coming from a family born and raised, or born in Mississippi. I'm born in Natchez, Mississippi, right along the Mississippi River, and my sister's Philadelphia, Mississippi. Now, speaking of them, I am the oldest of 4 siblings. Now, as I go through, I have my oldest sister, Bernadette. Bernadette was a graduate of 1979 from Edgewood High School. She's achieved her doctorate in physical therapy. She's at the university in Seattle, Washington. She would have loved to be here, but could not attend. Then I have my sister, Crystal, class of, if I remember right, Crystal, class of 1980, and she's right in front. She's a journalist, so be careful what you say. She's recording everything. Yeah, so she, her own self is an acclaimed Pulitzer Prize, along with her husband, Carl Chancellor. Then I have my youngest sister, Amy, who also would have been a class of 81, but moved down to New Orleans and did graduate. She, too, had her master's. She became a counselor and graduated and retired as a high school counselor. And that's what came out of Edgewood. It created the environment for success. And it was never done in a boastful manner. It was just something that we were raised. And many of us, we were raised right on Hawthorne Drive. Hawthorne Drive is no longer here, but we're here as to live on the memory of it. And you have, like my lifelong friend, you got Mike Freeze there. And Mike and I, we had some great times. We just laughed most of the time. I think it was me at his jokes, but we made it through. And I have Jim Claypool, who, as I heard, just responsible for nominating me. And I think we just happened to meet at a golf match. I'm not a golfer. I'm just a social golfer. But yeah. And then along that same street was his sister Renata. Also, Sharon Freeze, fellow Hall of Famer, right on Hawthorne Drive. The Raineys, Tim Rainey, fellow Hall of Fame graduate, all started right there on Hawthorne Drive here right in Edgewood High School. And then we have others along the way. I think I invited the Jacksons. They're here. Kevin, Durs, all of these, Daryl. They're here. Then we have the class of 78 reps. We got Karen Carey, 78 grad, Hall of Fame. Gary Washington, also we call him Mr. Basketball, class of 78. And really Edgewood is where I had my start of the love of baseball. We had, if I remember, Kyle Ripken's father came to Edgewood High School. And he played at the time for Aberdeen High School. So it was that love of baseball. And Jim Claypool. I have Chick Ham. There he is here. He was a first baseman. And he was hard to miss, you know. So when you're trying to get that ball from shortstop to the first base. Steve Moyer, Steve McLaughlin, all of these are others who were also right here in Edgewood High School. Now, this is not a long, exhaustive list of all the ones who have contributed to my success. There are ones teachers like Mr. Vangren in his calculus class that set me on the right path for engineering classes later in West Point. Mr. Lowe, who introduced me, cross country, he remembers all of that. I was not it wasn't the sport I loved, but I came to love it. You know, I guess that's the best way of saying it. Then you have Mr. Carson, Mr. Hitchingham, who's here. I already met him. So it's just all these ones who were great leaders, role models for us. And then we had inspirational characters like Mr. Coakley. He was not just someone that we read about now. I knew Mr. Coakley. He was a living legend here. We had the Bradleys, Dudley, Tubb, Carl. These were all inspirational characters, mentors, leading us into the direction of where we are and where I stand today. So teachers made a lasting impact on me, and they deserve our adulation. These are the hardest workers I know are teachers who dedicate their life to the advancement of the future. And no doubt this is one of the things, probably unconsciously or conscious, why I, after transitioning from the military and being in Europe, came to be a teacher. And I've been doing it 21 plus years, and I love it. It's something that I love to do. You're giving back to the community, and what better way then to do it than in the classroom? Now, I accept this individual recognition for my accomplishments and contributions with humility, knowing that I have stood on the backs of those, all the ones I mentioned and the ones that are not mentioned. And for that, I am eternally grateful. Thank you.
Before I introduce our final presenter, I'd like to say how rewarding it's been for me to serve as your MC once again this year. It's a red letter day for our 5 new Hall of Famers, but it's also a red letter day for all of us who love this school. Edgewood High School remains a key foundation piece in our lives, a living, breathing entity. It has endured and overcome many challenges and reaped countless success stories. I believe today's final inductee said it best when asked for the accomplishment for which she is most proud. She said it was being included among the many alumni from Edgewood High School who exemplify excellence. Despite the stereotypes, she remarked, we are a proud group with countless professionals and community role models using their time and talents to benefit those around us. I am in great company, she said. I love being a Ram. Dr. Kendra Brown Jackson becomes the youngest individual ever inducted into the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame. In the relatively brief 25 years since graduating from Edgewood High School, Dr. Jackson has achieved remarkable success. A life-changing event for her was witnessing her grandmother's stroke, which led ultimately to her decision to become a nurse. Interesting fact, she ran the Great Wall of China Marathon. And you're going to find out so much more. And speaking of accomplished women, Mrs. Deborah Besler, who will introduce Dr. Jackson, made a name for herself as a teacher, coach, and athletic director here at Edgewood High. So much so that the school system named her supervisor of high school physical education and director of athletics, a demanding dual role she handles with dignity and grace. Mrs. Basler, a 2016 Edgewood High School Hall of Fame inductee, has her own teacher-protege story to tell you about the extraordinary woman you're about to meet.
Morning, everybody. Oh, that was great. So I spent 21 years of my career here at Edgewood teaching and coaching, and I had the privilege and amazing opportunity to work with literally hundreds of very talented students and athletes. Many of them made such a positive impression on me that I do remember their names and some of the great accomplishments that they achieved in their young lives. But no one made a more lasting legacy than a young 1997 graduate, Kendra Brown. We affectionately called her Uptown Kendra Brown, 1, because it rhymed, and 2, because she was classy in everything she did. An honor student in every quarter, a member and officer in the National Honor Society, secretary of the student government, a standout 4-year volleyball player, and a member of the 1996 regional championship team, a softball player, and a talented student musician. She was truly a star here at Edgewood High School. But none of that could have predicted the amazing things she was going to accomplish. Earning a 4-year ROTC scholarship to Clemson University, where she earned her BS in nursing. She enlisted in the U.S. Army immediately after graduation and devoted 20 outstanding years to her country as an active duty public health nurse corps officer, rising to the rank of lieutenant colonel. Along the way, Colonel Brown Jackson earned dual master's degrees and a doctor of nursing practice. In addition to fulfilling with honor her critical duties in the various bases where she was stationed, Dr. Jackson made it a point to give back to her communities. After retiring from the Army last year, she was named Director of Public Health Outreach Services at Mary Center in Washington, D.C., where she directs public health outreach, sexual health, and HIV prevention services with a focus on overall wellness. Board certified in ambulatory care nursing, Dr. Jackson is also an adjunct faculty member at the Georgetown University School of Nursing. Dr. Jackson and her husband of 18 years, Delmar, have 2 children. As a proud member of the EHS Hall of Fame, it humbles me to be in the company of this great, strong young woman. Please join me in welcoming a most deserving new member of the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame, Lieutenant Colonel retired, Dr. Kendra A. Brown Jackson.
Good morning. I would first like to begin by recognizing the Edgewood High School faculty, staff, and alumni, distinguished guests, community members, family, and friends. I'm extremely honored and humbled to be before you today to receive this recognition. This ceremony is truly a full circle moment for me. Being a 1997 graduate of EHS and today having the privilege to return back into this outstanding building, to be inducted into the Hall of Fame is just amazing. The Army brought my family back to Harford County. I'm a proud Army brat. When my father retired, and my parents decided to move back to the area where my mom grew up. Edgewood High was the 7th school I entered by the 9th grade. I had plenty of experience being the new kid, so when I came to Edgewood, I came with my guard up, wanting to get a feel of the environment before committing to building any new relationships. I walked on Edgewood's campus for the first time the summer of 1993 for band camp. And little did I know that day would be the first day of lifelong connection to community, camaraderie, commitment, and pride. Knowledge and education is the basis for all things accomplished in life, and I owe so much to the teachers and the staff of Edgewood High School. They provided the platform and the opportunities to challenge me, expand my limits, and push me toward my dreams. They shared words of encouragement and affirmation. There were never discussions about can't or won't. The life lessons learned through my academic studies, participation in the band program, athletics, and community service, I have carried with me throughout my career as a military officer, public health director, and nurse educator. Compassion, self-discipline, collaboration, dignity and respect, accountability, patience, dedication, teamwork, being a lifelong learner, and growing where planted are many of the attributes cultivated during my years here at Edgewood High School. So to all of the school faculty and staff, past and present, thank you for pouring into me, and to all of the students that have walked through the halls of Edgewood. Thank you to my fellow EHS classmate, Michael Brown, an esteemed educator, administrator, and selfless servant in his own right, for spearheading my nomination. I'm so glad we have continued our friendship beyond Edgewood, and I've been able to watch you grow and excel in education, which is definitely a place where we need more males as role models. Thank you for your continued work in shaping and developing the next generation of leaders. Thank you to Dr. Jim Lamb for working with Mike and supporting my nomination. Thank you, Coach. Hall of Famer, class of 2016, for the warm introduction and also supporting my nomination. You know you were my favorite coach, and I know I'm your favorite center fielder and back row volleyball player. That's my story. That's my story. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank Mr. Robert Bruce, my band teacher and also Hall of Famer, class of 2018. I'm not sure you know how much you've influenced my life. You provided an environment where creative expression was encouraged. You pushed me and all the band students to be at our best. During band performances, I gained so much self-confidence and the ability to be comfortable for being out front and leading a team, and eventually a lot of military soldiers and organizations. Thank you for letting this 5'2" high school me be drum major senior year. I'm probably the shortest drum major in EHS history, but that's okay because the band was still sharp. I also want you to know that Richard, Erica, Nisha, and Michelle all say hello and really wish they could be here to see you. I'm extremely blessed to have my parents, Sergeant First Class, retired Ison Brown and Valerie Brown, along with my sister Kayla, who's also an EHS graduate, here in the audience. My parents are my first and loudest cheerleaders. Thank you for creating and sustaining a household where Kayla, Chris, and I always felt the love of family, regardless of where the Army sent us. Thank you for keeping us focused and driven. Thank you for modeling excellence and demonstrating that bumps in the road don't have to lead to failure, but can be transformed into success and achievement when you put in the work. Thank you to my father-in-law and mother-in-law, Reverend Dr. Alonzo Jackson and Sandra Jackson. Thank you for being the village that Dalmar and I needed, supporting both of us as we advance in our careers. Last but not least, I would also like to thank my husband, Dalmar, and our children, Donovan and Kendall. We affectionately call our family Team Jackson because we recognize success isn't achieved alone. Teamwork really makes the dream work. So thank you, Dalmar, thank you, Donovan, thank you, Kendall, for having my back in everything that I do. My heart is so full. I am proud to represent the Edgewood community and Edgewood High School. Thank you for this honor, and congratulations to all of the other Hall of Fame class of 2022 inductees. Thank you.
That concludes our presentation this year for our 2022 inductees. I would ask that if you will all join this side of the room in just a moment with our dignitaries so we can have some photos. Thank you, Principal McMillan. Thank you so much for having us back. It has been a joy. We missed being here. Thank you for having us back. Thank you, Josh, for all of your help and your support. And thank you all for coming and for your support. God bless you all. I wish you the best in your career at EHS. I hope that what you leave with today is a little inspiration and a whole lot of love for one another, because down the road you're going to need each other, and you're going to remember EHS is where you got all that you needed to make life interesting, life fun, life fulfilling. God bless you. Thank you all again. Have a wonderful day.